Namaste, this is Samta Auntie. In this video, we're going to learn the Hindi vocabulary for 3 fruits. You've been learning fruit vocabulary in class, and today we're going to add 3 more so that you'll know how to speak more. We're also going to speak full Hindi sentences using words and phrases that you've already learned in class. So let's get started. We're going to be learning the Hindi words again for grapes, watermelon, and pear. Grapes in Hindi are angur. Watermelon is tarbooj, and pear is nashpati. Let's do those again. Grapes are angur, watermelon is tarbooj, and pear is nashpati. Now let's practice. What is the unicorn eating? Angur, tarbooj, or nashpati? The unicorn is eating tarbooj. What is this? Angur, tarbooj, or nashpati? Nashpati. What is this? Angur, tarbooj, or nashpati? They're grapes, right? So they are angur. And what is this? Angur, tarbooj, or nashpati? Well, it's watermelon, right? And watermelon is tarbooj. And what about this one? What do you see in this picture? Angur, tarbooj, or nashpati? Well, we see two, don't we? We see grapes and pear. So how do we say grapes and pear in Hindi? Angur or nashpati. And also, we have one more thing in that picture. We had a save, an apple, which is a word you've learned previously. And what is this in this picture? Angur, tarbooj, or nashpati? Nashpati. And what about this one? Angur, tarbooj, or nashpati? Tarbooj. And this one? Angur, tarbooj, or nashpati? Angur. And they look happy. So let's name them. Let's name them Kushal Angur. Kush means happy. And when we can make it a name, we turn it into Kushal. So we can say this is Kushal Angur. And what is this? Angur, tarbooj, or nashpati? Well, these are pears, so nashpati. And what is this? Is this grape juice, watermelon juice, or pear juice? Looks like watermelon juice, right? So watermelon is angur, tarbooj, or nashpati? Tarbooj. And what about this one? We've done grapes before, so you should know this. What is grapes? Angur, tarbooj, or nashpati? Angur. Now, as you know, there are green grapes and there are purple grapes. So green grapes we call, how do we say green in Hindi? Hara. So for green grapes we say hara angur. So then what do you think we say for purple grapes? You know the Hindi word for purple. Bangani angur. So hara angur is green grapes. Bangani angur is purple grapes. And what is this? This looks like a pear superhero. And is it angur, tarbooj, or nashpati? Nashpati, superhero nashpati. And what is this? Angur, tarbooj, or nashpati? They're watermelons, so they are tarbooj. And what about this? What do you see in this picture? Angur, tarbooj, or nashpati? Well, we see two, right? So how do we say watermelon and pear? Tarbooj or nashpati. Remember, the word or is how we say and in Hindi. Tarbooj or nashpati. And what is this? Oh, this is yoga uncle. Yoga grape uncle. So how do we say grape in Hindi? Angur, tarbooj, or nashpati? Angur. And these are purple grapes. So how do we say purple grapes? Bangani angur. All right. Now, let's see. What do we have here? Angur, tarbooj, or nashpati? These are pears, so they are nashpati, and I think we should count them. Let's count. Ek, do, teen, char, panch, छः, सात, आठ, नौ, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So there are 20. What's 20? 20. There are 20 nashpati. All right, now we're going to test your memory like I always do. Now you're not going to see words anymore, so I want to see if you remember these 3 words. So what's the unicorn eating? Is it grapes, watermelon, or pear? She's eating watermelon. And how do we say watermelon in Hindi? Tarbooj. And who are these guys? Are they grapes, watermelon, or pear? Pear, right? And how do we say pear in Hindi? Nashpati. And what about this? These are purple grapes. How do we say grape in Hindi? Angur. And how do we say purple grapes? Bangani angur. All right. And what about this one? These are watermelons. So how do we say watermelon in Hindi? Tarbooj. And what do we have here? Grape, watermelon, or pear? Well, we've got 2. So how do we say grapes and pear in Hindi? Angur or nashpati. And what was apple again? You already know the Hindi word for apple. I've taught this to you. How do we say apple? Seb. And what is this? These are pears. How do we say pears? Nashpati. And this one? Watermelon? Tarbooj. And this one? Grapes? Angur. And how do we say purple grapes? Bangani angur. And what about this? You should know this. We've done a couple of these. Pears are nashpati. And this one, watermelon, is tarbooj. And this one again, grapes, you know this, you should know this. Angur. And purple grapes are bangani angur. And what about pear, our superhero pear? How do we say pear in Hindi? Nashpati. And what about watermelon? Watermelon is tarbooj. And how do we say watermelon and pear? Watermelon and pear. Tarbooj or nashpati. And what about grapes? We've done this a couple times. Grapes are angur. And what about this? What about the pears? How do we say pears in Hindi? Nashpati. All right, great work on that. So now that you've memorized those 3 words, let's now put these together in full sentences using phrases and vocabulary that I've already taught you in previous classes, okay? So how would we say in Hindi, the watermelon is sweet? The watermelon is sweet. I'm going to give you a few seconds to think about it and say it out loud. Okay, so you know what watermelon is. We just practiced it. Watermelon is tarbooj. And what about sweet? Remember when we learned about the taste words like sweet and sour and spicy and salty? We learned these words. So what was the Hindi word for sweet? Meetha. So how would we say the watermelon is sweet? तरबूज मीठा है. तरबूज मीठा है. And remember, this word मीठा is a tricky H word. So it's not mita, it's mita. All right? So here's your chance to review the 4 words I taught you, the 4 taste words. Meetha is sweet, khatta is sour, namkeen is salty, mirchi is spicy. All right, how do we say the pear is sour? You know the word for pear and you know sour, so put it together in a sentence. All right, नाशपाती खट्टा है. नाशपाती खट्टा है. And that word khatta is another tricky H word. Do you hear me saying khatta? I'm not saying cut, I'm not saying kata, I'm saying khatta. So after that K, there's a tricky H right after the K. All right, let's do another one. The grapes and pear are sour and sweet. The grapes and pear are sour and sweet. How would we say this in Hindi? All right, let's take a look. अंगूर और नाशपाती खट्टा और मीठा है. Angur or nashpati. Angur is grapes, or is and, nashpati is pear, khatta is sour, and sweet is meetha. So angur or nashpati khatta or meetha hai. All right, now let's practice some more phrases that you've learned. You learned how to say above, below, inside of, and outside of. So now we're going to use those with this new vocabulary that we learned today. So how do we say the pear and grapes are inside the basket? The pear and grapes are inside the basket. नाशपाती और अंगूर basket के अंदर हैं. So you remember ke andar is inside of, like the picture is showing us with the arrow pointing inside the box. So ke andar is inside. You learned the Hindi words for pear and grapes today. So you can put it all together to say nashpati or angur basket ke andar hain. All right, let's do another one. The watermelon is on the counter. The watermelon is on the counter. All right, let's take a look. तरबूज काउंटर के ऊपर है. तरबूज काउंटर के ऊपर है. The watermelon is on top of the counter. The pear is under the tree. The pear is under the tree. All right, let's take a look. नाशपाती पेड़ के नीचे हैं. नाशपाती पेड़ के नीचे हैं. All right, another one. The grapes are outside the basket. Excuse me. The grapes are outside the basket. How would we say the grapes are outside the basket? All right, let's take a look. अंगूर basket के बाहर हैं. अंगूर basket के बाहर हैं. Now let's do the grapes are inside of the basket. All right, let's take a look. अंगूर basket के अंदर हैं. If before it was the grapes are outside the basket, अंगूर basket के बाहर हैं, and now they're inside the basket. अंगूर basket के अंदर हैं. So, great work! Now you know 3 more fruits, and you got to put together full Hindi sentences using phrases that you've learned from previous lessons. So you're building your vocabulary and your ability to speak Hindi more and more every week. Great job! Dhanyavad for joining me. I'll see you in class.